when we breathe, when we connect with our breath, we connect with the rhythm of life, we can lift above words. We can find the place of plenty, the garden from which we descended to, into a knowledge, a naming of good and evil, of polarity, of distinction. And we can enjoy the distinctions. We can work within the distinctions. We can explore all the many patterns of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being, with their many side effects. I didn't have any money, and I had all this time. Now I'm making lots of money, and I don't have any time, right? Right? We can explore all these patterns. We can lift back into the garden, into the awareness that transcends language, the sacred whole, the one. The beauty, truth, and goodness that converge beyond language into synergy, into one. We have never left it. The ego as an identity that feels separate, despite defining itself as inherited patterns. Genetics are inherited, but the ego says that's I. I am these genes, but they were given. The ego says these are my thoughts, but they are composed in a language that was given to the ego. These are my actions, but even the word action and its pictures are memes given, right? The I is in this interesting paradox. The ego is in this interesting paradox of defining itself with inherited patterns and feeling completely separate from all that is, because most of the patterns it has inherited are patterns of separation, are patterns of distinction created in language, the good people and the bad people, the chosen people and the not chosen people, right? We come into reality as a sympathetic ego, absorbing and downloading all of the code, faulty and otherwise, outdated and otherwise, of the cult through our parents. Moving into adolescence, we reject large portions of ourself, the cult, the parents, if we fully embody the state of antipathy. And then we reassemble pieces that we like and iterate and come up with our own patterns of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. And we say that that's me. These are my patterns. I am the patterns. And yet the witness is the one watching the show. That which can watch something is outside the set of what is being watched. The audience is outside of the set of the actors. The audience is watching the play. The characters in the play are playing the play. The witness is the audience that watches you, which means it is not the ego, it watches the ego. It watches the play, the performance put on by the ego. And an unconscious ego puts on the performance of its parents and its cult, because it takes no consciousness to copy the memes, the identity, the patterns given. A conscious ego that has traveled and explored inside and out has iterative, conscious unique patterns of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being, and can put on a more unique show for the one in us who watches, the witness, the presence that doesn't judge, it witnesses. The one who watches, the one who is present, transcends the ego and is still connected to the kingdom. The ego feels alone and separate because it's in the play. It wants to feel home, wants to belong to the one, to the all. And yet, to return to the one, to the all, the ego must sacrifice itself. It must let go of the I that identifies with the pattern it uses to define itself as separate from others. I am the one who believes this and does not believe that. How can one return to the oneness and hold on to the identity, to the pattern? The ego is that which fears death. It fears the dissolution of the pattern. It is terrified of losing the coherence of the pattern because then it loses itself. It loses its sense of existence. Then it dies. And yet the home that it longs for, the flow, the grace, the ease of the garden is on the other side of transcending the ego. This is why to find one's spiritual self, one's larger identity as connected with all things, one must be willing to face death. And this is why so many identities are clung to with such tenacity in such misery by the ego. Because that misery, that identity, that pattern is the only thing between death and transcendence by the ego. I am a Republican and we are being taken advantage of and lied to and this and this and this. There's a lot of suffering. If I let go and I am, there's no suffering. But who am I? Who am I? Right? We give up the I am in order to form identities so that our bodies can fit into a flow that can survive. We adopt the memes that will help us meet our needs to survive and be secure, experience love and belonging within the cult that we depend on. As we mature and prosper and become more independent, we can afford to return to the garden, to return to the one that we left behind. That we abandoned in order to hold on to the identity, to the pattern that everyone around us was so upset about, was so attached to.